On this program, you're going to get to see one of the most important people in any theater productions whom you normally don't get to see. And in this case, that's Mark Wilson, our guest this evening, who is an associate professor of theater at St. Louis University and their resident lighting designer. But he also has been helping us out when we have done our shoots of this program at St. Louis U, and he's the one who made everything look good and set it all up.
Thank you.
Mark, welcome to Two on the Aisle. Great to have you here. Now, I know, right, I said what you're doing right now, and we've covered shows that you've designed and both lighting and set at St. Louis U, but you have done many other things along the way, I know, and I think that's something that people might want to, somebody who goes into design for theater, how do you make a living doing that sort of thing, other than become a professor at a university?
Well, when I first started in St. Louis, I worked at the Repertory Theater of St. Louis in 1985, and it was a very exciting season. That was the David Chambers season, the world-class season where he was really bringing in guest artists from everywhere, and it was a good time. So I worked with Max DeVolder he was our technical director then, and I started with him, and I was the assistant technical director. And I kept really busy there for the rep for 5 years, and then worked over at Opera Theater St. Louis as a technical director and also as a production manager. And then in 1999, I worked at Bush Creative Services. So I moved over to the corporate world.
Now, what did that involve?
Well, they had a shop. It was just down the street here, and it was supervising their scene shop, building their convention displays, exhibits. And the biggest show we usually did was the big convention for the wholesaler meeting. And so it was usually doing this huge set and building that. And also in charge of the equipment rentals. And then we also did a big John Deere show, rollout show always, and things too. So that was different for me. That was the day-to-day, taking scene design now and lighting design, technical direction, which was really my major in my MFA, Master of Fine Arts. And we did that. And so we then would take those shows, and it was just a day-to-day grind of putting out shows for Anheuser-Busch. Primeric was another client we had, and then John Deere.
But I imagine that the pressure in that job was as high as on anyone, because I know the insistence on quality there, especially for things they do for wholesalers.
Yes, it was always a day-to-day. You didn't know. We'd be building a huge set for a convention, let's say in Dallas, and I'd get the phone call a week before we'd load out going, Mark, we're going to have the Clydesdales on stage. And so you'd go, okay, so how many? Is it the whole hitch? Or if it's just, so a lot of times we had to change then how the set was built and constructed. Obviously, our stage-hands were great, knowing exactly how to construct a set that would hold up a horse, a 2,000-pound Clydesdale.
And clean up after that.
Yeah, and clean up was another issue. We didn't have to do that much. But it had to have a sound deadening to it, so it had to be like 1.5-inch plywood, then plus a 1/2-inch sound deadening plus the carpet on it, just so that the horses felt comfortable on top of it. But the day-to-day things there were sometimes, to me, didn't have the soul of theater. I missed that a lot too. And I was there 6 years, and then in 2003 started at St. Louis University. And that when I started there, it was just great. It was like it was a liberal arts college, which I started in undergraduate school too, and it also gives me a chance to share what I've learned and mistakes I've made with students, and also as my own kind of studio, place where we experiment with things. I think you see, every time you see a show over there, we try something new. It's the chance to do it with our students and do it, and then because sometimes it's so hard in the professional world to take those risks, but in an academic world, you can try things. And we always talk about it too, we joke, let's give it the college try. When it's in college, it's the chance to take those risks and try it.
Well, it's what colleges should be doing in a way. I mean, I guess we think of, especially on the graduate level in the sciences, the biochemistry or genetics or whatever, that of course they're experimenting with new things.
Yeah,
but
it's
why
our
shouldn't
research.
the same thing be true in the arts?
Yeah, our research then is really, we call it now creative endeavors, which is perfect. It's perfect. So they allow me, which is great in my job, they encourage me to go out and do these extra jobs and extra freelance work and design work. And a lot of times we'll bring students with us too, so that's good, and then they'll see our work. Or also that you're a working professional, and I think all our faculty at St. Louis University are active working professionals, from Jim Bowinkle, my colleague in set design, Gerry Barker, our chair, who's directing and acting a lot. Nancy Bell, one of our new colleagues now, just was starring in Glyndebourne Park.
Just
Did a
saw her
great
at the rep studio, yeah.
Yeah, she's doing a great job. And then our new technical director, Bryce Allen, has been doing technical direction in town and also sound design. And then, of course, Lou Bird, who is doing costumes everywhere
Yeah.
at times. And then Tom Martin is directing and then stage managing across the town.
Well, I have to say that the work that you've done around town, especially set design for small theaters, is just extraordinary for the amount of quality you get from in places where the resources can't be that large.
Yeah, I've always liked the smaller spaces. I mean, the best place for me to work always at the Rep is the Studio Theater. And, you know, that's where I got my chance to design professionally the first time in St. Louis.
What was the show?
It was called A Quiet End in 1987. It was in the Studio Theater. It was a play about an AIDS, HIV. A person was dying. It was in this hospice, and it was in this, you know, enclosed room.
Yeah.
And so Steve, it was great. I think sometimes I always said, oh, you got jobs because you're around the drinking fountain over at the Rep. That probably was true. I was right there. If they said they needed anybody, I'd raise my hand. I'm ready. But that was a great opportunity. And I designed, that's the best play. I've done probably over a dozen shows in the studio and really enjoy that quirky space.
Yeah.
Another quirky space is the one that the West End Players Guild uses, where you have a you know, just a typical church basement assembly hall with a raised stage and a flat floor, and yet when you've worked there, you have made it, you've expanded it so much and created so much depth by bringing things out on the floors and building layers on that stage. It's just amazing.
Yeah, West End Players was always, I think that was the spirit of theater, of community theater when I first in town, you know, that you had the families there that would get together and do the set builds on Saturday and get things together. And they loved it that I could always bring things in with my pickup truck and find things that we would be throwing away. I mean, a lot of times the resources that I have are things that, oh, I know that that's at the Rep. They're maybe throwing it away or it's from another show. But the famous one was I brought in one time Susan Bussin directed Arsenic and Old Lace, and we took these huge big windows that we had from an opera, and we couldn't even fit them in the basement. We had to cut them in half to drag them down the stairs there too. But they love that. The people are so, and probably parts of those windows, knowing West End Players, are still in the theater. There's still things there, ghosts from a long time ago. But the small theaters, I love that. I think that's the spirit of really St. Louis theater, where you'll see people on stage, but also the support. And that group really, they have it down. And I love working with Steve Callahan, one of my favorite directors to work down there too.
Yeah,
and he's the person that usually brings all his tools down. Very few directors probably have their own toolkit. I mean, he brings all his tools down. He's helping build the set. And then his wife Marjorie is in helping paint. So there's a whole community of people that are there working on those shows.
Yeah, the set for the Seafarer that you did with that group just had tremendous depth to it.
Yeah, and we just took a bunch of sidewalls, and it was supposed to be like this Irish, you know, apartment, and we just took a muslin all over it, just draped it all over to make it look like plaster and things, and then we did a ceiling down there too, which was fun to do.
Yeah.
They had to enclose it in. And then Marjorie helped paint it. I had to leave. I went to a training session. It was a American College Theater Festival, and I was doing respondents there too, and she painted it all while I was gone too. So it was almost like being a professional designer now. I didn't have to paint everything too. But the small places are great too. I think it's always encouraging to see other people that are lighting and working with that too. And it's just the resources that everybody has a little bit of resource that you can give, then it makes that production, you know, more unique and special for them.
The Violet Hour that you just did last summer was also terrific for Max and Louis Productions, because the setting was so important for that play.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I think that was a great experience to work in that space, that studio, and then that play is just wonderful too. I mean, it just had so much, you know, poetic, you know, background to it too. So I think sometimes when you get a chance to do those type of plays where you can do the poetic realism, that was happened in there too. And I just messed around with changing perspective in there a lot too, of leaning the walls in, and we had to cut a lot of things there too. But now we had a hard time getting things down in that basement also.
Well, we could go on. I mean, you've done so many wonderful things. We've gone forever here. We've run out of time, but this is great. I mean, this range of things. Mark, thanks a lot. Mark Wilson, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for having me.